na tung pareo tu também jo te tanieta a tu ni ni Irilaga Irilaga Yuna pupareo Kawajiki Pumi-sama Pamajiki Putu-sama Kawajiki Pumi-sama Pamajiki Putu-sama Dokta Didi Tinyam-hinaga Kawajiki Pumi-sama Pamajiki Putu-sama Pamajiki Putu-sama Kawajiki Putu-sama Dokta Didi Tinyam-hinaga Dokta Didi Nidi Otundi Nada Dokta Didi
Okay. Tashi the leg. Oh. Okay. Tashi the leg. Everyone. So today I come on this stage to use the platform to speak on a topic that is very important to millions of people. And so today's topic is Dalai Lama, Truth Matters, why His Holiness the Dalai Lama, why His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama, and why Tibet. So today I want to highlight on the recent event that happened on April 10th, 2023, when suddenly out of nowhere, a short edited video clips became a social media sensation, suddenly trending all over the medias, and many even shockingly big medias were portraying, the spiritual teacher, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, with the boy and with the title, Suck My Tongue. And these short, edited, misleading video clips without content took a big stage. Many of the influencers with the millions of subscribers in many countries were also talking, and suddenly this talk became a big event, big sensational. So today I want to talk about why this event is an important event, turning point for the global communities, not just for Tibetans. Why this event is a huge call for the free international communities, where there is, like in countries like US and India and many countries, where there is the freedom of speech, the freedom of media, the freedom of internet. And as far as the international community knows, no one in the international world, no one in these countries would be persecuted, tortured, or put into jail for expressing opinions online, for singing a song, for having a picture of the Dalai Lama or any of those that are declared as the basic universal human rights. When this, for 64 years, since 1959, the Tibetans inside Tibet, millions of Tibetans have been suffering, been put into a actual political prison by denying the millions of Tibetans the freedom to travel, the freedom to speak freely, the freedom to religion, the freedom to one's own language. And most people, when this hype was happening, when this media of accusing the spiritual leader, the icon, one of the most respected, revered, true guru, inspiration to millions and billions around the world because of his iconic leadership on promotion of compassion, human values. And when a spiritual teacher like His Holiness Dalai Lama was attacked with the short edited videos in a global scale, that is a big wake-up call for the free democratic countries. For all of us, it's a big shift in time, because the power and the change in time at this time, in this digital information age, now it's proven from this point that the authoritarian, fascist, autocratic regimes can have huge power in manipulating and in bringing false narratives that seem so startlingly true and real. And they can also have the power to use AI bots to amplify with the use of social media platforms, and the propaganda can try to shift and change public opinions. And that's why. So on the surface, there was the video of His Holiness Dalai Lama talking to a boy, and that suddenly became media hype all over the world. And when you start researching deeper, today, now 12 days, almost 2 weeks later, when we start really researching deeper, now we realize there's the bigger context. And at the first sight, the context was the boy and his parents and 120 graduation party, the graduation ceremony where 87 years old His Holiness Dalai Lama was invited to give a blessing and encouragement speech for the graduating students and for the M3 Foundation, Educational Foundation. It was a great event that was happening in public, globally televised, and all of the contexts were not presented in those media hypes during that time. And if you were there on April 10th, all over the internet, you could see that Dalai Lama with the Suck My Tongue and kids, as if to equate that to child molestation and pedophilia, all of the furthest reality, all of the false accusations that were furthest from realities were trending all over the internet. And now, 12 days later, Tibetans all over the world, from west to east, from Swiss to France to India to places from New York to Chicago to every corners, individuals from Tamang to Ladakh, thousands of people rose voluntarily because they know who His Holiness Dalai Lama is, because they know the spiritual tradition of Tibet is pure, because they know the vows of the monastics have been going on for thousands of years. And so today I just want to dig a little deeper, and hopefully this live stream, and I'm speaking from my heart, live stream would help more people to really find deeper truth, to not get stuck on the surface superficial levels of misjudgment on any event, to question everything, including my own videos and what I'm speaking, and hopefully bring a more clear picture on the issue of His Holiness Dalai Lama, on the issue of human rights, on what the authoritarian regime is really trying to cover. So from my finding, the key reasons that I can find is that why would a spiritual teacher like His Holiness Dalai Lama, who's been promoting nonviolence and compassion, dialogue between traditions and religions, promotion of interfaith dialogue, who's an environmental activist, who promotes education of loving kindness and compassion in the world, who believes and continue to advocate for a world that is more demilitarized, for a world that is equal amongst all people. And why would a spiritual teacher be attacked at this time, and by who? So all probabilities and indications lead to, so I will try to gradually go into, and I have here some of the videos that I have collected here, which I will broadcast right now, from the speech from the National Security Advisor Matthew Pollinger, who spoke about the techniques the authoritarian regimes now they use to surveil on journalists, retaliate or manipulate social discourse, and the kind of news and kind of videos that we see on our screens now faces the risk of manipulation from authoritarian powers. And that is a stalking call for the free world to be aware. And specifically for His Holiness Dalai Lama, what we know is China as a country for the past 60, 70 years have been denying the basic fundamental human rights that is allowed, that is written on the Universal Declaration of International Human Rights, which is the right to self-determination. The right to self-determination is more commonly known as the right to self-determination, which refers to the right of people to determine their own political status, free from external interference. This means that people have the right to choose their own form of government, economic system, and cultural practices without external coercion or influence, and the right to self-determination is recognized as the fundamental human rights under international law. And that is the key underlying motives that China, as an authoritarian regime, has been denying the people of Tibet, and now also including the people of Uyghurs, democracy activists, and all people, and especially of the Chinese themselves. And now today I have prepared and some of the videos, evidences of videos in public hearings that are held by the congressional commissions, including on Tibet and China. And I would hope that more people would connect that to the issue that happened, and so that more people would truly understand that when such things happen, there's huge, massive funding and global campaign coordinated by massive powers. And so this event didn't just happen out of voluntary emergence. So here I would like to bring you, and we will also go to the short video hype. I would like to show you the video hype that was going on at the time on April 7th. There was all over medias, and especially big YouTube influencers, most probably being paid under the door. And we're hyping that. But first, I want to prove you the key elements that the communist China have been trying to cover and not show to the rest of the world, and especially denying the self-determination right and the basic human rights from millions of Tibetans in Tibet. And this is spoken at the Congressional Executive So here is the Congressional Executive Commission on China conduct hearing on Tibet, and I would like you to hear Mr. Michael Van Wald. And Michael Van Wald is a professor in the School of Historical Studies specializing in interstate conflict. And so let's hear that, and then after that we'll go into the video that was hyped on the 10th April, and we will now slowly dig deeper into why. Okay, here we go.
Mr. Chairman, my testimony today is based on the findings of 10 years of collaborative research, historical and legal, most of which I carried out during my tenure at the School of Historical Studies of the Institute for Advanced Study in Princeton, and the findings are published in these two books. Today, I'd like to call your attention to one of those findings and its international legal ramifications. Contrary to what the PRC claims, Tibet was historically not a part of China. Though not always independent in the modern legal sense of the term, and over the centuries subject to various degrees of Mongol, Manchu, and even British authority or influence, Tibet was never a part of China. The PRC did not inherit Tibet from the Republic of China or from earlier empires as it claims. Tibet was in fact an independent state in the modern sense of the term, in fact and law from 1912 to 1951, when the PRC took it by force. So the PRC's military invasion of Tibet constituted an act of aggression and violated the peremptory norm of international law prohibiting the acquisition of territory by the use of force against another state. And this informs the legitimacy, or not, of China's presence and rule of Tibet. China does not have sovereignty over Tibet, and therefore it is occupying Tibet illegally. That, in turn, informs the international community's legal obligations and its responsibilities regarding the Sino-Tibetan conflict. Governments are prohibited under international law from recognizing China's annexation of Tibet, and they have the positive obligation to help bring about a resolution of the Sino-Tibetan conflict, to end the occupation of Tibet, and to enable the Tibetan people to exercise self-determination. As you stated, it is US policy to support a negotiated resolution to the conflict between China and Tibet. But US government actions run counter to that policy. The US government has stated more than once that it considers Tibet to be a part of the PRC. If it and other governments continue to do so, Beijing no longer will have any incentive to negotiate with the Tibetans. The international community will have satisfied the PRC's needs without Beijing having to make any concessions to the Tibetans. The PRC wants two things above anything else regarding Tibet: legitimacy and no foreign interference or criticism. Beijing's strategy to obtain legitimacy in Tibet from the Tibetans is failing. The Dalai Lama disputes the PRC's only claim to entitlement to Tibet, namely that Tibet has been an integral part of China since antiquity. And he is not giving in to pressure to make a statement to that effect. Beijing has therefore started demanding of other governments that they recognize that Tibet is part of China and is using their statements as a substitute for true legitimacy. Once a government accepts to regard Tibet as part of the PRC, it also accepts that Tibet and Sino-Tibetan relations are China's internal affair, outside its purview. Beijing's needs are then satisfied, and the Tibetan negotiating power, which depends heavily on the international community's upholding of international law in keeping with Tibet's status as an occupied country, is then severely weakened. And not only that, endorsing China's sovereignty claim to Tibet conditions the Tibetans to envision a settlement that can bring only marginal change in Tibet. Given what we know about China's treatment of Tibetans and also its treatment of Uyghurs, and Beijing's determination to eradicate their very identity, I ask, is marginal change what the US really wants for the Tibetan people? The conflict will not be resolved with marginal change. It can only truly be resolved if the Tibetans' basic needs are satisfied. At a very minimum, this requires a robust autonomy with guarantees and international protection endorsed by the Tibetan people in accordance with their right to self-determination. To arrive there, the international community needs to play its role, uphold international law, treat Tibet as an occupied country, and the conflict as a matter of international responsibility. Thank you.
So I am bringing the link, the connection on what happened on 10th April with the big, huge media hype of this event, when this short, edited, hyped, media manipulated, misleading, edited, with no context video was viraling all over medias and social medias, being amplified with the use of new modern technology like AI from all the way from the CCP corrupt China. And while this was all happening and everyone was so shocked how the great Holiness is now kissing young child and connecting that to child abuse, pedophilia, and a lot of misleading lies were spreading. And it's sad to witness for someone who have been paying attention and those who have been studying the kind of events that have been unfolding for the past 60, 70 years, for 64 years, since 1959, the restriction of freedom of basic expressions. Like today, as we live in the free world right here, free to speak our mind. And if I were to play a music, I would play any music. And every one of my American friends and other friends that I know from anywhere in any country, I've not known anyone where any country would persecute people, that people would go to jail for singing a song, for writing an opinion on the internet, for writing a book, for expressing a view. Only in China and maybe North Korea. But the human rights organizations have time and time and time again have brought reports saying Tibet is now one of the least free country under the great liberated communist republics liberation from the propaganda of false self-dome that somehow the Tibet was before China some kind of a feudal society ruled by evil Dalai Lama, furthest from truth. And this time again, when this kind of lies were spread all over the internet and it's hyped with massive campaigns and hugely funded, technologically advanced, seems the lie is going to invade the world, while the truth continues to stay furthest. And I would like to really believe that no matter how much of attempt to defame His Holiness the Dalai Lama, all of these massive campaigns would be like a showing a little light, torchlight to the sun, because the ray of truth, ray of His Holiness the Dalai Lama's virtues, luminous, bright light will continue to brighten the hearts and minds of millions of Tibetans, and not just Tibetans, but people who loves to have and live in a country that is fair, free from oppression, free from injustices. Those people who were being inspired by the message of compassion in the world by His Holiness Dalai Lama. And I would like to believe, but I also have doubt that if we don't take actions, if we keep on hearing news of oppression in Tibet, oppression by the communists, of intellectual theft, of military espionage, of imprisonment and targeting of journalists in and outside of China. And if we continue to hear all of these oppressive, violent actions conducted by a single entity, and now today we have overwhelming evidences, not just one evidences, but overwhelming amount of evidences to prove that the authoritarian regimes not only undermines the free democratic societies and it so today I want to also show you a speech from the former from the former national security advisor Matthew Pottinger at a U.S. Congress hearing on China. And right after that, then let's get back to the context of what happened on that day. This video that hyped all around the world globally, and now we can rewatch that video and then get a more clear picture of the underlying forces that is trying to move the public opinions, and the reason why will be uncovered. So let's together watch the Mr. Let's watch this the Mr. Gallinger, chairman at so this is the U.S. House Committee holding a hearing on Chinese Communist Party's threat to America. And this happened just last month. This happened on pretty much the same day, February 28, 2023. And that is quite interesting. The event of attacking on His Holiness Dalai Lama happened on the same day. And somehow they took the clip and edited and spread it globally all over the world. And it was a globally coordinated campaign from all the way to PRC. And so now let's hear from the U.S. House Committee. Here you go. I hope you can hear this.
They are all exceptional. We will now move on to the question portion. I recognize myself for 5 minutes. Mr. Pottinger, few issues have received as much bipartisan attention recently as TikTok. Could you elaborate on your concerns, both in terms of potential espionage, control over the algorithm, as well as potential precedent a mitigation agreement could set when it comes to TikTok and other CCP-directed technology companies operating in the United States?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Well, certainly the data privacy issues, which have gotten a lot of attention, are a real problem for the privacy of Americans, but also for our national security. Already, the Chinese parent company that controls TikTok has been confirmed as having used the app to surveil U.S. journalists in order to try to identify their sources and to retaliate against their sources. And that's just one small example of the universe of potential abuse that would be in the offing. Look, there's nothing in Chinese law that suggests that the Chinese Communist Party would back off of its legislated privilege to access all of the data produced by social media platforms and other Chinese apps. I simply don't think that it's possible to mitigate in a credible way against that threat. But the bigger coup for the Chinese Communist Party, if TikTok is permitted to continue operating in the United States, and if WeChat and other Chinese platforms are allowed to continue to operate, is that it gives the Chinese Communist Party the ability to manipulate our social discourse, the news, to censor and suppress or to amplify what tens of millions of Americans see and read and experience and hear through their social media app. TikTok is already one of the most powerful media companies in American history, and it's still growing. It's not just dances and kids stuff. It's becoming a major source of news for a generation of Americans.
Thank you, Mr. Pottinger. General McMaster.
So the reason I show you this video is to make us all realize that the CCP, or in this case, obviously the former National Security Advisor Matthew Pottinger is talking about the Communist Party's access to information, where he clearly said that the bigger coup or the bigger threat to the democratically free countries, medias in India, medias in America, medias in Australia, medias, we live in the free world. And now the danger in the free world is that the authoritarian regimes can now have access to democratically free world media platforms. And they use bots and powerful technologies like AI technologies and their military trooper powers to surveil on journalists, attack or retaliate on journalism, and manipulate social discourse, which means the kind of news, the type of news that we see on our screen can now be possibly manipulated by authoritarian regimes. And in this case, they are explicitly talking about the Communist China, the CCP. And so this is a stalking call. This is a shocking waking call for all of us. And now when this event happened was the February 28th, and what is shockingly interesting is the event on April 10th, when the video of His Holiness Dalai Lama, when this video, this short, edited, manipulated video was viraling all over the internet, when this was happening, this same video happened on the same day when when the House committee interviewed the former national security advisors, and four of the other interviewers were talking about the threat of China. And so that's why I wanted to join the connection. And now with all of those contacts, and if you want to know all of the broader context, I made few videos. I made few videos which I can, let me see. Right when the event was happening, I started making. I was obviously, as a Tibetan, I was shocked. And those of you know the Tibet situations, Tibetans for the past 60 years, 64 years, Tibetans inside Tibet today, as we speak right now, are still restricted from access to the free world. Tibetans still do not have freedom of expression, freedom of speech. The Chinese government tightly controls the media and internet in Tibet. Individuals who speak freely about their feeling on the history of Tibet, on the return of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, can face persecution, detention, arbitrary detention and imprisonment, torture. Religious repression is been happening for all of these thousands of monasteries. According to various different organizations, human rights organizations, 1 in every 6 Tibetans have been persecuted since the great liberation by the communist China, since the arrival of the communist oppressive regime in Tibet. And the cultural suppression, the Tibetan language and culture are under threat due to the policies that promotes the Mandarin Chinese and restricting of Tibetan language. There are incidents of Tibetans being jailed for teaching Tibetan language. Forced labors, reports of Tibetans being forced to work in factories, and hence the things that we've been hearing of the forced labors of Uyghurs. And that was the second practice of what's been happening in Tibet. And many experts already knew about that. Environmental degradations, the dams that have controlled the roof of the world, the source of Asian rivers, which feeds more than 3 billion people. All of China, all of India, and the entire Asian continent depends on the water that originates from the Tibetan highlands. And for thousands of years, Tibet, being the spiritual heartland, being the top of the world, have preserved, because of the unique Tibetan tradition, to treat water as sacred, earth as sacred, space as sacred, that all phenomena, that being born as a human being is a profoundly auspicious attainment. So the unique Tibetan tradition of combination of the Buddhist compassionate view and the Tibetan view on reincarnations have kept the rivers and the waters clean for thousands of years. And for the first time since 1959, now Tibetans live in all of these denial, the restriction of freedom of speech and expression, religious suppression, cultural repression, arbitrary detention, torture, and even as we speak today, if you hold a picture of the Dalai Lama, if you sing a song to promote Tibetan culture or freedom, you'll be jailed as we speak right now. And all of those issues, the real issues that's been going on for 60-something years, were just put under the rug. And now the communists is using the boat and technologies to attack on the most revered and respected spiritual leader, teacher, a true guru who's been inspiring millions of people to work for peace, to develop compassion, unconditional, impartial, loving kindness towards all beings, to make the world a better place. So the Chinese government, instead of addressing the real issues to solve the Tibetan people's pain and suffering, instead of addressing the human rights violations of the issues of the democracy movement, instead of addressing the pain and the sufferings that people have been feeling in Tibet, in Uyghur, inside China, now they're coming to attack the free world and trying to manipulate and change the public view on the international platform about Dalai Lama, about Tibet, so that they can legitimize the continuation of oppressive practices that violates any of the all of the norms of international rule. And again, so the most important, it comes back down to the violation that the Communist Party have been denying the basic rights of self-determination for the Tibetans, for the Uyghurs, for the Mongols, or for the people of any rights inside or. So the self-determination, the international rule, the right to self-determination is recognized as a fundamental human rights under international rule, which means the self-determination, which refers to the right to people to determine their own political status free from external interference. This means that people have the right to choose their own form of government, economic system, or cultural practices without external coercion or economic or cultural practices, external coercion or influence. And that has been denied. And those most important issues are pushed aside. And that is most important for the free world, for the people who are watching this video, for all of us to not forget that the most important issues, they are trying to push it aside so that we all be paying attention on just sexual molestation and harassment, and we be just all divided into negativity and forget the real picture. So now, after having this context more cleared, now let's try to go back to the video and let's see it again. And I will show you the video first on April 10th, what the video that was edited and kind of a short second without context that was hyping all over the media. And let's see that again this time first. And then after that, let's see the full video. And now let's try to have another judgment of. Okay, here you go. I hope you can see this. Can you see this? Okay, let's see. This is from Mirror. There you go.
Then I think finally here also. And son, my tongue. And son.
So this video went viral. This video went viral. This video went viral, and no one of the medias, none of the influencers, none of the viral medias gave the context of where it was happening, what was happening. Is, you know, all of those contexts, situational context, the context of timing, and none of us, and everyone was rushing to judge and equate this event, the spiritual powerful leader abusing a child. And none of them mentioned that at the time when that was happening, the boy's mother was right next, like as you can see right there. That was the mother who happened to be also the main organizer. And also none of the media also mentioned which organization, what was happening. And so if you want to know all of those, I have already made videos, and there have been many people who also made videos. You can go to you can go to one of my former where it mentions truth matters. And so none of those were shown, and all over the world the internet was talking about how bad, you know, child abusive and pedophilia, Dalai Lama, how evil, and so and so and so, when truth was furthest from that. And that's why I'm calling this is a turning point to the free world. That in fact, authoritarian regimes with a massive capital powers in money, in technology, can now influence the democratically free country's view. And Tibet, what is happening to His Holiness Dalai Lama and to Tibet may be one of the ground experiment. And what will happen next? The next, it could be the election, presidential election in different countries. And the possibility is fearsome. And so now that you know all of those contexts, and let's see the full unedited video. And apparently the boy, in fact, was the son of the organizer. And there was 120 students. It was a graduation ceremony. His Holiness the Dalai Lama at age 87 was invited to bless the graduating students. And the boy happened to give the present to His Holiness Dalai Lama before this event, and he stood up in public to ask for a hug. So now let's watch the entire without unedited.
Can I hug you? It's a question.
Is it okay to hug His Holiness Dalai Lama?
Okay,
So two
come.
people translated.
First, yeah.
And the 87-year-old,
Then I think finally here also. And son, my tongue.
and I want you to watch. I want you to watch that actually their tongues didn't touch. And there's a grandpa, like a family, like a affectionate way in ways how, you know, grandparents and parents would tease and, you know, kind of show affection. And when a tongue, like a chili sa in Tibetan, we say chili sa. Chili sa is just like, eat my tongue, now I have nothing to give. And those were, you know, kind of the event that was happening. And I will show you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So the media were not showing that also. None of that was shown.
We are
Like he
same
said.
human brothers, sisters. Thank you. Now you should look those good human beings who create.
And after that, His Holiness the Dalai Lama also, you know, continued to teach about the values of the universal oneness of humanity that he's been speaking about. And so he not only teased the boy, had fun with the boy in public. And I will show you the video before that, because this event only was already hours into the event.
Peace, happiness should not follow those human beings who always killing other people. We should not look these people.
And if you can see, His Holiness Dalai Lama would tease him. Now, 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 I still don't want you to be judging so quickly because we have been bombarded with negativity in the West and in many countries now. Politicians corrupted for power and money, and then so much of our the sex and the power and all of those are being all over the news, so it's easy to fall into a negative connotation. And now on top of that, we have influencers that are looking for clicks, and if a money is paid, they would, any kind of a propaganda or news would be just on the channel, because if someone is, because of the financial incentives. But so it is, but for those who truly still know that the world is actually better than we realize, that human beings are kinder than we realize, that the luminosity of mind is brighter than we realize, then you will truly know there is still holiness, there is still sacredness, there is still people who are true living Jesus, who is God in flesh. There is this purity of genuine human heart and mind who's dedicated to making the world a better place. And His Holiness the Dalai Lama is that which inspires all of the peoples in the world to continue to love and care for each other. And that has been attacked on that day. And now and that's why truth, I really believe, requires a little bit of surge. We do need to also do a little deeper research into the sources and truly, and there is a stage of arrival where we are completely at the perception of clarity, where we truly can develop the wisdom to differentiate between what is good and what is evil, or what is sacred and what is profane. And there is a stage of human clarity where our perception can reach that stage of clarity. And so that's why this event, it does require not just our quick judgment, but to go a little deeper, to go into the deeper levels of understanding. Now let me show you the third video. So the second video, as you have seen, he's on the Dalai Lama, touching the boy, and then he's English. Remember, he's on the Dalai Lama is 87 years old, and this is a publicly telecasted event. And the mom, his mother and family was right there, and there were 120 students and diplomats right in front of. All of those contexts were not given in any of the media on that day. And not only that, this boy was before that was on the stage in offering His Holiness Dalai Lama gift. And so let's watch these videos. And this was happening.
Thank you.
Let me take myself off.
Thank you. Thank you, His Holiness.
Touching forehead is a.
When I was young, my elder brother.
And if I may post it right here for a moment. So this video, this part of the video where His Holiness the Dalai Lama have touched the boy's hat and then offered prayers, he took off his hat, and none of that were shown. And this happened before the event, before the big viral video clips. This was happening, where the boy was encouraged by his mom and his families to give the gift to His Holiness Dalai Lama, and His Holiness Dalai Lama suddenly also remembered his own childhood when he was a child. And now let's listen.
his name was something. We always live together and play together. And occasionally, some problem. Then you see, my weapon is this one. Thank you. Okay.
So this is what was not shown on the this is what was not shown on the massive media, and that's why the the that's why the misleading kind of a propagandas usually never show the entire context, and the manipulated narratives were only suggesting. So those of you who felt bad that some big important spiritual leader is now mistreating child, if you felt so, you are a victim, because that edited video was designed for the purpose to fool the massive publics. And so now so that's why I was telling on those immediately. Most of the Tibetans, when we saw these videos, we were shocked. It was not knowing how to respond, because we know what is true. We've been watching His Holiness Dalai Lama for the past 6-7 decades, and we know what is a genuine teacher, genuine guru, a genuine spiritual teacher, and he is that which he is. His Holiness Dalai Lama is not just a global icon and global leader. He received not only a Peace Nobel laureate prize because he's nice, because he truly possesses all of that which he speaks. And he's inspiration to millions and billions around the world for promoting compassion, kindness, humanity. His activities for interfaith dialogue have moved the world to a different direction. And none of that was it was an attack on all of those values that inspired that inspired millions of people all around the world. And that's why the shock to the system makes people not to be able to immediately respond. But what I'm trying to say today is this event that was globally, that happened on a global scale, was a massive wake-up call for the democratically free countries. And we have to make the link. And if I may take you back again, if I may, let's watch the event right after. So right after the event, what did the child and his mom expressed? Okay, here you go.
His Holiness hold you and hugged you. So at that time, what do you feel?
You can only feel the positive energy, and I just can't express how good it feels.
Exactly.
It was amazing meeting His Holiness, and I think it's a really great experience meeting somebody with such high positive energy. It's a really nice feeling meeting him, and you get a lot of that positive energy. It's not just like that, but once you get the positive energy, I think you're happier, and it's a better thing, and you smile a lot more. It was a really good experience overall.
The student's mother.
So the students, the boy and his mom, and all of them had no issues. And they had a great, amazing time. So the event was an amazing experience for the boy, for his mom, for his family, for hundreds of graduating students, and it was a fabulous event. And then let's hear what his mom also expressed right there. Here you go.
Foundation. We've been working in Dharamshala on this skill center which we started last year, and since then we were looking at seeking blessings from His Holiness. And today we got this opportunity, and especially when my family was there with me, and all the students who graduated from I Empower Academy of Skills were also present. We're totally blessed to have got these blessings from His Holiness. He came, addressed us in person, taught about peace that the world needs, and how everyone needs to feel together like brother and sister. And I absolutely cannot express how I feel getting blessed by.
So this is the most important thing that I want to continue to remind ourselves, that the real issue is not His Holiness the Dalai Lama and the boy. The real issue is not just an accusation on His Holiness the Dalai Lama and a child abuse. The real issue, let's watch what on the 28th of February, on that same day in the United States of America, the U.S. So on that same day, within the United States of America, the U.S. government, was holding a hearing on the Chinese Communist Party's threat to America and the free world. On that same day, when His Holiness the Dalai Lama was giving that inspirational lecture and inspiring the young students in Dharamsala, on that same day, in the United States of America, I believe this was one of the most important hearing on the relation between China and America.
We'll now move on to the question
and so,
portion. I recognize
this was happening,
5 minutes.
and this
Mr.
is
Pottinger,
what the
few issues have received as much bipartisan attention recently as TikTok. Could you elaborate on your concerns, both in terms of potential operations?
So let me recheck on this. So this was right there on. Here you go. So my main point is that on that same day in the United States, U.S. Congressional Committee was holding a hearing on the threat of China, including cyber espionage and information attacks on the free democratic countries like China and like United States. So let's hear from the National Security Advisor Matthew Pollinger's talk on that same day. So remember, in Dharamsala, India, His Holiness the Dalai Lama was giving that talk to the M3 Foundation and the kids. And in America, the U.S. committee was holding the threat of China's Communist Party in America. And so let's hear the former National Security Advisor Matthew Pollinger's response to the question on what is cyber attack.
They are all exceptional. We will now move on to the question portion. I recognize myself for 5 minutes. Mr. Pottinger, few issues have received as much bipartisan attention recently as TikTok. Could you elaborate on your concerns, both in terms of potential espionage, control over the algorithm, as well as potential precedent a mitigation agreement could set when it comes to TikTok and other CCP-directed technology companies operating in the United States?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Well, certainly the data privacy issues, which have gotten a lot of attention, are a real problem for the privacy of Americans, but also for our national security. Already, the Chinese parent company that controls TikTok has been confirmed as having used the app to surveil U.S. journalists in order to try to identify their sources and to retaliate against their sources. And that's just one small example of the universe of potential abuse that would be in the offing. Look, there's nothing in Chinese law that suggests that the Chinese Communist Party would back off of its legislated privilege to access all of the data produced by social media platforms and other Chinese apps. I simply don't think that it's possible to mitigate in a credible way against that threat. But the bigger coup for the Chinese Communist Party, if TikTok is permitted to continue operating in the United States, and if WeChat and other Chinese platforms are allowed to continue to operate, is that it gives the Chinese Communist Party the ability to manipulate our social discourse.
Did you hear that? The ability to manipulate social discourse in the free and democratic country like United States or anywhere now. Now we know. So this is coming from the National Security Advisor, the former National Security Advisor in the United States.
News.
On the same day.
To censor and suppress or to amplify what tens of millions of Americans see and read and experience and hear through their social media app. TikTok is already one of the most powerful media companies in American history, and it's still growing. It's not just dances and kids stuff. It's becoming a major source of news for a generation of Americans.
Thank you, Mr. Pottinger. Gentlemen.
So now, do you see the connection? Now do you see the connection that on the 28th, on the same day, on the 28th February, in Dharamsala, India, His Holiness the Dalai Lama was giving this talk, and later this part of the little edited video became the sensational hype on the April 10th, all over the internet, accusing His Holiness the Dalai Lama. When that same day, the event happened on the actual event happened on February 28th, and the media hype of accusing His Holiness Dalai Lama has pedophilia and sexual abuse on kids happened on April 10th. But now as we dig into the deeper truth, now we realize the CCP, the Communist Corporation, have huge, massive authoritarian regimes and powers that they can mobilize big, huge internet department to manipulate and amplify and to bring false contact, edited videos, manipulate and change the public opinion on certain issues that the Chinese Communist Party wants to put it out onto public forums, and they can use these technologies to make huge manipulations, and that is exactly what happened to the accusation of His Holiness Dalai Lama on that day. And this, we need to be concerned, and not only His Holiness Dalai Lama, to the democratically free countries like United States. We need to know that for the past 6-7 decades, Tibetans in Tibet have not been given freedom to express even a words on the internet about Dalai Lama. Holding a picture of Dalai Lama can land you into prison. And decades, year after year, human rights organizations, including many of the U.S. departments, including International Campaign for Tibet, including Human Rights Watch, have been reporting year after year all of the human rights abuses that's been going on, from arbitrary detention to torture, to religious repression, cultural suppression, enforced labors, and displacement, disappearance. And all of those reports are what they're trying to hide. And now let's continue to hear. Let's continue to hear the next video where okay, so now the U.S. House of Committee. Okay, let's hear this. Let's go deeper.
Thank you. Mr. Pottinger, under President Xi, the Chinese Communist Party has vastly expanded digital surveillance of the Chinese people. the Chinese people are unable to do anything without the CCP being aware. And I understand that they aim to use all that personal data collected on individuals as a method of social control. I believe Ms. Tang Yi said it's something like a digital dictatorship. If this Orwellian state of affairs is not bad enough, the CCP has dramatically increased the export of surveillance technology abroad. Companies like Huawei, Beidou, WeChat, and others work on behalf of the CCP to route surveillance technology across the globe. Sometimes it's called safe or smart city systems, but in reality, these are tools for authoritarian governments to surveil citizens and repress human rights. But it gets worse. So these companies can gain access to any data these systems collect and hand it over to the Chinese state security. What's your view on this? We're going to need to develop strategies going forward, policies. What is your view, and how bad is it?
Congresswoman, thank you. I think that we need to have a much more rigorous defense and offense. On the defense side, it means that we don't allow those same capabilities that you were describing that are being used to impose what one former Chinese Communist Party official who's now in exile calls an exquisite totalitarianism, right? A digital dictatorship, as you put it. We don't want that to be exported onto our shores to give the Chinese Communist Party the ability to manipulate our own discourse and to steal our data and to silence and intimidate people, as it's already doing through social media platforms here in the United States. On the more offensive side, I would say that we're a free country. We don't need to peddle disinformation or deep fakes, which are now part of the stock in trade of the things that the CCP is experimenting with. All we have to do is connect people. We need to make it easier for Chinese people to connect with the outside world and see news and information flowing in safely without the digital panopticon of the Communist Party looking over their shoulder. And we need to make it easier for them to communicate with one another. I don't think we've tried very hard. So this thing that looks so formidable, I think, is actually made of paper mache. I think you can punch holes in the Great Chinese Firewall. I think we've not made a concerted effort, a public-private effort with Silicon Valley firms leading the way. Let's face it, Silicon Valley firms aren't going to gain access like Google and Facebook and others who've tried years ago to work in China. They've been banned. They have nothing to lose by working for the cause of freedom. And the U.S. government, there's a lot more that we can do in that front as well. I think we haven't gotten started yet.
So, can everyone hear my this live stream? Can you hear it? Is it glitching? Snowline just said can't hear anything. Can you hear it now? And when the video was playing, was it still glitching, or can you really hear it? I can hear your voice. You can hear my voice now. Oh, okay. So all of those videos that I showed, you were not able to hear that, huh? Ale, ke mindula, ale ke mindue. Can't hear video while playing. Video ki can kugum do. Okay, so if that's the case, I think I'm going to continue to do this because what I'm trying to say is, what I'm trying to link is on February 28th, when the boy and the M3M presented the graduation ceremony in Dharamsala, when that was happening on the same day in the United States of America, the Congressional Committee was giving a hearing on the threat of CCP, the Communist Corrupt China. And so on that day, the former security advisor Matthew Pollinger was speaking about the threat of high-tech internet, companies like TikTok, and apparently, since it's monitored and mainly governed under the CCP communist authoritarian regime, now they have the power to manipulate social media discourse. And they've been doing surveilling on journalists, they've been attacking or counterattacking journalists, finding sources from all the way in China to change social views. And so now this is affecting Americans in America, or what Americans can hear, view, and see on the internet. And that's why it is a national security threat. And so that is actually what the Chinese government or what the CCP is trying to cover. And so, okay, I want to play one video earlier. Snowline, can you hear this if I show this video? Let me see. Tell me if you can hear this video.
Tenzing Taitong is a former Tibetan government official and representative of His Holiness the Dalai Lama to North America.
You can hear this?
He served in several roles in the Central Tibetan administration, including as Kalon Tripa, the equivalent of Prime Minister. He has served as the director of the Tibetan Language Service at Radio Free Asia.
You can't hear
and is
anything?
currently the director of the Tibetan Language Service at Voice of America, and he is testifying in his personal capacity. And Ellen Bork will be joining us by Zoom.
고맙습니다.
She is contributing editor at the American Purpose. She previously served as a senior professional staff member for Asia on the Senate Foreign Relations.
Okay, so if that's the case, I'm going to continue to try to make it quick as possible on the. So this is the information I'm going to try to communicate as much as I can, because I have a lot of videos that I have prepared to try to prove. And so on the same day, on February 28th, in America, while the event was happening, the M3M graduation ceremony was happening in Dharamsala. His Holiness Dalai Lama was giving the blessing to the boy and the students of the M3M Foundation. Same events, a different kind of event was happening in the United States, where the U.S. government or the U.S. Congressional Committee was on that day, on the same day, February 28, 2023, U.S. Congressional Committee was hearing one of the most important historic hearing in the history of America and China and America and the world, because on that day, four of the experts here, it says the former National Security Advisor, Mr. McMaster, and former Deputy National Security Advisor Matthew Pollinger, and the committee will also hear from the Tong Yi, a Chinese human rights advocate, and Scott Paul, the president of the Alliance for American Manufacturing. And so all of those were giving, they were giving talks about the threat of the CCP. So all of the from internet espionage, and from intellectual theft to military theft to all the various kind of data privacy breach that's been happening were addressed on that day. And so there was a lot. So anyway, I want to, if you can't hear all of the video, then I will try to make it shorter. And I think I'm going live also on the Facebook. And so for the Facebook, I think I will go to this last video, and later, after all is done, I think I could, what I can do is I could transport from Facebook.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to thank our witnesses tonight. And let's begin by, as a committee and as a nation, making one thing clear to everyone around the world. The Chinese Communist Party is a threat to the United States. It is the threat of our lifetime. The CCP actively undermines the U.S. and our world economy. It also attempts to use the principles of our republic against us. Beijing is intent on building a military that not only threatens the world in the Indo-Pacific, but across the globe.
Okay,
Beijing
let me
also
rewind
has no
that
problem in
so
exploiting
that
our
some of the
financial
people
systems
can.
against us. It also committee and as a nation making one thing clear to everyone around the world. The Chinese Communist Party is a threat to the United States. It is the threat of our lifetime. The CCP actively undermines the U.S. and our world economy. It also attempts to use the principles of our republic against us. Beijing is intent on building a military that not only threatens the world in the Indo-Pacific, but across the globe. Beijing also has no problem in exploiting our financial systems against us. It also illegally seizes natural resources, both here in the United States and with our friends around the world. And insidiously, it attempts to shape the thoughts, the ideas, and the viewpoints of our children through their use of media. And there are many other elements that we can talk about there. Mr. Pottinger, I want to get you to elucidate, why does the Chinese Communist Party seem so intent on challenging the United States? And how does Beijing view America? And maybe most importantly, what are the CCP's vulnerabilities? What are their weaknesses? And what do we have as an advantage over the CCP?
Sir, the Chinese Communist Party has viewed us as the primary adversary going back quite a long time, but very clearly around the time of the end of the Cold War. So when the Soviet Union, which had been China's primary adversary up to that point, fell apart, Beijing focused on us as their primary ideological threat, military threat. Chairman Gallagher spoke about the paranoia that really runs through the heart of the CCP, fear that it's going to be subjected to color revolutions, that democracy and freedom might come to their shores in ways that would unseat them. Look, the vulnerabilities are significant. I think the most important vulnerability of all is that the party fears most of all its own people. The Chinese Communist Party fears the Chinese people. And we've seen that on display. We saw it, as Tong Yi mentioned, the recent demonstrations in China where Xi Jinping was unwilling to remove this draconian zero COVID policy of lockdowns, even when it was causing their economy to crater, even when it was not working against containing the virus. And yet, when did he finally give up the policy? It was when those brave young people, many of them young women, who led those protests on the streets of Chinese cities. Once that happened, he gave up the policy overnight and announced that COVID was merely a cold and nothing to worry about. So they're fearful of their own people.
Very good, thank you. General McMahon.
So now we know the Chinese Communist Party is most fearful of their own people. That really speaks a lot of volume to the state of China, that the China that we think of is so great and unbreakable is maybe made of paper dragon. And that is a very important expert analysis on things. So I heard some of the YouTube friends cannot hear that, but I will continue the event today because I have a little bit of continuation on these important points. And so again, so let me go back to the, I was giving we were giving the event the reason why this was happening. So on Freedom House, it gave a writing on the global media influence, and right here I wrote about I was pointing at the Chinese Communist Party and its proxies are using most sophisticated and coercive tactics to shape media narratives and suppress critical reporting, mass distribution of China-backed, Beijing-backed content via mainstream media. That's really important. So on April 10th, when the accusation to the spiritual leader of, Tibet and the Buddhist leader was happening, this was a massively choreographed, edited, hyped propaganda that spreads all over big medias, mainstream medias, and that means there was a huge amount of financial incentives. Some were paid. Harassment and intimidation of outlet and published news, opinions, and disfavor by the Chinese government, and the use of the cyberbullying, fake social media account, and targeted disinformation campaigns are among the tactics that have been employed more widely since 2019. And that's one of the most important. And the other key important thing that I wanted to highlight from the digital threat analysis, which is a Microsoft's, big company that is threatening and that is analyzing on the world's condition. So here I want to highlight this because here this says Shen Haixiong, voice minister of the CCP, the Communist Party's Central Propaganda Department. They actually have a propaganda department, which is their job to propagate false informations all around the world. CCP's Central Propaganda Department stated in public statement in August 2021, eye-witnessing, exciting, irresistible, invisible propaganda should be spread. He said, the Communist Party's propaganda chief, he said that this should be accomplished at least in part through the use of multilingual internet celebrity studios able to vividly tell the story of CCP, which means all of the informations that the CCP wants to project to the world. And obviously there's more articles. Here's the article from Microsoft. The nation-state cyber attack became more brazen as the authoritarian leaders ramp up aggression. And so here it's mentioning about the Iranian actors and North Korea and China, the three of the main leaders in authoritarian attacks. And so I think I just want to cover up to here because there's a lot of questions. And then one of the questions that comes up is, why did His Holiness the Dalai Lama, like a media on April 10th, his website addressed a video clip has been circulating that shows a recent meeting when a young boy asked His Holiness the Dalai Lama if he could give him a hug. His Holiness the Dalai Lama apologized to the boy and his family, as well as many friends across the world, for the hurts that his words may have caused. So why did His Holiness the Dalai Lama apologize? And that was one of the questions that people asked. And so one of the main reasons is when this rumor, and if you watch the second video by Jingmi, you can know that if we watch the second video by Jingmi, then you will know that in fact there was a video that was circulating, and then they have most probably used manipulated hypes computer bot to change the public opinions all around the world. So now I think I have brought a lot of different points, and here it's 1 hour and 28 minutes, and in short, I just wanted more people to connect the dots. That event that happened, which attacked on the reputation, impeccable reputation of His Holiness Dalai Lama with the hyped video, was a attack. Was an attack on the free media in the democratic countries, and that wasn't just an attack on the Tibetan leader, but it was the show of power of the AI technology, the power of the changing dynamics of the world. So the digital age, in this digital age, now the authoritarian regimes have huge power because they have huge data under their belt, and they can manipulate what you and I, ordinary citizens, people in the democratically free countries, what we hear on the news, on the television screen, on the media, on the YouTube, on what we hear and see on our screen, now that can be manipulated and hyped by these sensational videos and to change the public views. And hence, this is a stalking call, and that's the main video that I wanted to, and also to remind the free world that Tibetans inside Tibet are still living under restrictions of basic restriction, heavy restriction. They still have not gained freedom of speech, freedom of writing, freedom of religion, freedom of culture, the freedom of, free from fear and arbitrary detentions and tortures. The Communist Party is continue to torture, detain, suppress, and what is known as the 21st century oppressive system is still continuing. And that is what the big players want to hide from the public medias, or want to hide from the public arena, so that we get dispersed into accusation of the spiritual leader and the real issues about human rights, about Tibetan people's right to self-determination, to determine one's own country. And these main issues, and let me read it again. That is what the big player, the Communist Party, is trying to hide, and so that more people in the free world be distracted. And that is with the case of Tibet. And then the next possibility in the future, now that the authoritarian regimes can have huge computer powers and huge data powers to manipulate, and like the former security advisor to the national security advisor in America, Matthew Pongo, like he said, the aggressive propaganda campaign to continue to spread lies and using apps to surveil on journalists, retaliate or manipulate, for the authoritarian regimes to manipulate social media discourse, news, and censor or amplify. And that's the stalking call that we all need to be aware in the free world, that and that's the real essence of why these events are happening, is the communist authoritarian regime's power to now affect on the medias and the views of the public around the world. And so this is what I'm trying to bring. And then obviously what many people around the world have still not heard is, for 64 years Tibetans still are not free inside their own land, and huge number of violations on the international law of Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which China is a signatory, and they continue to violate these rules. And since 1974, Tibetan administration in exile have introduced the middle way policy to try to negotiate a negotiable solution. Even that is still yet to be seen for any fruit. And so with this, I just want to hope that more people might have, I hope I've been having a kind of a issue when I broadcast this live. The reason I do it live is so that you can hear directly of the events that are going on, and then so I've been hearing some kind of issues in terms of sound, and so I hope it's not a CCP bug, but whatever it is, I will keep on trying, and I hope through this video some of you might have now learned the bigger picture and understood it, and now you can context the event and get a more clear picture of who is doing what and what is the real issue. And so thank you, and let me and Tashi Delek.